we just showed in our TV-only segment a top 10 or half of a top 10 list that I did a few years ago of top 10 NFL quarterback birthday parties I'd most want to attend. And it was a fun list, topped by Gardner Minshew.
I remember you came up with that list 15 minutes before the show.
It's because, you know why? Because the subtext or the inspiration, if you will, was a headline that had just popped that people, teammates of Russ's in Denver didn't want to go to his birthday party. Remember that one?
Even though he had
Even though he had some house with 18
a million
rooms.
bathrooms.
You're right, and a million bathrooms and all of that stuff. And that was the inspiration for that top 10 list. And here we are again. Our friends on the Prime Video studio set, a show that I've done before many years. The Thursday night production team with Prime Video. I know a lot of them because they were on the Thursday night studio set for us on the road on NFL Network. And so, at any rate, Tony Gonzalez said something very strong. And that Russ essentially has played himself out of the Hall of Fame. That his first several years in Seattle were Hall of Fame worthy. And as Tom Pelissero just said, his last 5 years, the last two in Seattle, 2 in Denver, last year in Pittsburgh, and now I guess this year, first 3 games with the Giants, have been very un-Russ-like from his first few years. And I got to be honest with you, and I'm a big Russ fan. We have a special place for him because he, back in the day, was a guest before he played a snap in the NFL on our season preview Rich Eisen podcast TV show, and has been a friend of this program. But it's tough to push back on what Tony had to say. Yep. We're waiting for his career pivot. One last act, similar to, I guess, what Kurt did in Arizona.
Sure.
After he was benched for a rookie quarterback in New York. That was Eli, taken first overall, and he was benched I guess when they were above 500. I think they were 5-4 when he got benched. And then he goes to Arizona, and there's Matt Leinart.
Yep.
And we're all wondering, is Kurt really a Hall of Famer? And then we saw Kurt's a Hall of Famer. We're waiting for that pivot for Russ, and it hasn't happened. And it might have happened in week 2. We were thinking, who knows? That kind of a higher register. Hey, is Russ going to do this again?
And maybe if they won that game, I don't know.
If they had won that game, they'd be 1-2. But again, the way that Tom's was reporting, what I am also hearing, what Mark Schlereth also mentioned the other day, is the final 4 snaps in that red zone with 3 minutes and change to go against Kansas City were so substandard, were so shocking, were so off the charts bad that you can't go into your own locker room and your own fan base and your own media, local media, and go, we're going to go back with Russ again when we drafted this kid 25th overall and everybody's clamoring for him. And maybe the players are looking at the coach and going, do you know what you're doing? And so it's tough to say if Russ is going to get another chance to start. And guess what? It could actually happen this year.
Yeah, obviously, you never know.
Well, I mean, look at J.J. McCarthy. He had the fourth quarter for the ages in his first career start on the road. He won NFC Offensive Player of the Week based on that one quarter. Certainly wasn't the first 3 quarters of that. And then 4 quarters later, he's out for 4 games. You know what I mean? And here's Carson Wentz. And now everyone's like, is this Carson Wentz's second chance? You know, is this it? The life comes at you fast. So Russ could be back in there because it's not Jameis that's in the 2 spot right now there in New York. But it's tough to push back on what Tony Gonzalez had to say, that he's played himself out of the Hall of Fame because he was on that trajectory. He goes to Denver that paid him what a top-notch elite quarterback gets, and then also paid Seattle in draft choices what you pay them to get a top-notch elite quarterback. And then Sean Payton comes in and goes, this ain't it. We're dead capping him to a record pace. And then we all saw what happened in Pittsburgh and what's happening now with the Giants. Steve Young, maybe we'll ask him on this question coming up in hour 2. And then, listen, if I'll say this. If Richard Sherman wants to push back, I don't know if he does or not, on the notion that Russ's teammates in Seattle weren't all in on Russ. His comments after what Tony Gonzalez had to say certainly lends credence to the fact that Russ's teammates were not in on Russ, all in on Russ, then and now. Yep. Because at least Tony gave Russ the statement that he was playing into the Hall of Fame prior to playing himself out.
Right.
I mean, Richard's comments were like, look what he's done without a top defense like the Legion of Boom, which is saying, I guess, without a top defense, Russ wouldn't have played himself into the Hall of Fame? Is that what we're saying? Because that certainly lends credence to
aggressive.
Some folks were happy to see Russ leave Seattle.
Yeah.
Or when he was there, they were grinning and bearing the whole let Russ cook thing. I saw that one. I'm like, wow, okay. Because that's the way I took Richard's comments, and I know it's kind of dangerous to put words in his mouth, but that's the way I took it. You know, look what's happened since he hasn't had a top 10 defense. And I would say Denver's defense was beginning to cook. You know, they did have an eventual defensive player of the year on the back end, and Patrick Surtain there. And then Pittsburgh's defense definitely did fall off towards the end of the year last year. I'll say that. But Russ was cooking too.
I mean, Russ had 4,000-yard seasons. He had 5 seasons over 30 touchdowns, including a 40 touchdown year.
Yeah, I mean, he played himself into the Hall of Fame. And the comments from Richard, I'm like, does he not think that? Because that's the way it sounded, and I don't know if that's the way he intended it. But for all those out there hunting and pecking for like, does everyone like Russ? They don't like Russ. That kind of gave credence to the not so much. Yeah. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.